What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. I am back from CPAC. I'm back from AFPAC. I made it back safely, as you can tell. Um, and in the coming days, I'm going to be doing a little bit more video content with a couple of attendees from AFPAC, um, taking a look at some of the speeches, some of the speakers, what we think the impacts of AFPAC and CPAC were. More so the failure of CPAC and the success of AFPAC. But um, if you look at my Twitter, you already know AFPAC was a smashing success. Everything went well. Um, and also, like I said on Twitter, the journalists are kind of doing what you expected they would do. Um, and I think that's what we're gonna kind of get into tonight. Looking at this Rachel Maddow segment on NBC, she is well, you'll see, but her and ABC are kind of doing the rounds. They're doing exactly what you expect they would do regarding AFPAC and a lot of the speakers that were there. So I wanted to take a look at kind of some of the dishonesty from the mainstream media. I've never really broken down any leftists that do commentary like Rachel Maddow or anything. It's more been conservative speakers. Um, so I'm going to kind of subject myself to some torture here with Rachel Maddow. I mean, clearly the physiognomy doesn't lend itself to any form of credibility. So Rachel Maddow is who you think she is. She's kind of that outraged leftist, that person that your wine aunt, your millennial cat mom, dog mom person watches and gets outraged over and or gets outraged over the stories that she tells people to get outraged over. So basically what happens here is she's incredibly dishonest about AFPAC, Steve King, Paul Gosar, Nick. And we're going to look at some of the omissions, the lies by omission that she gets into. Um, and yeah, just in general, how the media lies about the movement and everything. But it should be interesting. Um, another one. This is one of those videos where I hope it doesn't get 15 million views or something, and it's banned because I'm screen grabbing from NBC. But I don't really care. It's fun. Um, should be fun though. Let's see what Rachel Maddow has to say about AFPAC.
We cover a story that I said at the time skeeved me out in a way that made me worry about my ability to sleep that night. I was right to worry about that. And we actually heard from a lot of you guys at home that story really resonated for you and skeeved you out. With helping to steal a laptop from the office of House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. The FBI cited in the charging document.
So this is the woman that probably ill-advised, but she was one of the people that entered the Capitol, I believe, on January 6th. And I guess she stole a laptop from Pelosi's office. And then watch this sleight of hand that Rachel Maddow pulls here.
A witness who claimed that Ms. Williams planned to pass that laptop to somebody she knew who was going to give it to Russian intelligence. Riley Williams.
So notice how she doesn't give any corroborating evidence. They don't interview the person who made the claim. They just say that she knew. It's alleged that a person that she knew who she may have talked to once said that maybe the laptop was going to go to Russia. No, if you really have evidence for that claim, you're going to interview someone, you're going to bring them on TV. And she does like a dramatic pause after she says that, so her boomer and her shitlib audience gets to go, "Oh my God, it was going to go to Russia. This is a Russian agent. Oh my God." Don't fall for that kind of stuff. Not that I need to tell anyone that who's watching this video already, but those are the kind of tactics they use. They will say anything. Someone could have littered at the Capitol, and they would have said that the plastic was going to be sold to Russia to subvert our democracy or something. So this is what you're dealing with. So just keep that in mind when you're listening to things like things that people like Rachel Maddow say.
Williams denies the charges. Pelosi.
Well, of course she denies the charges because I mean. It's funny how they do that right there. They say, "Well, she denies the charges." Well, obviously, if she believes herself to be innocent, and if it's a lie that the laptop that you're claiming was stolen was given to Russia or something, you know, they use the fact that the person is claiming that they're innocent as proof of their guilt. It's pretty insidious what they do with that kind of stuff.
His laptop, incidentally, still has not been found. But what Bellingcat and Richard Engel discovered is that Riley Williams is also the woman in this incredibly definitively prove that Riley Williams is the woman in the video. That indeed, among the Capitol Hill rioters who have been charged thus far are explicit neo-Nazis, anti-Semites, and white supremacists.
That's a disgusting smear because I shared this on Twitter back in March, I think. I went to Austin for a rally for the president and against election fraud. I went to a rally, and the ADL wrote a hit piece article about the people that I was with and used me in the cover photo of the article they wrote. And the title of it was "White Supremacists Gather in Austin for neo-Nazi adjacent rally." And we'll get into this in a second, but they will literally just they will label a rally as a white supremacist or white nationalist rally with a black person in the picture. And that's not me saying, oh, the left are the real racist and the Democrats actually founded the KKK. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that they will actively lie about the makeup of the audience in order to justify their censorship of a movement that they find a threat to their power. They will lie about the racial makeup of an event, anything. This is the left, this is the ADL, this is the SPLC. They are willing to do anything. It's actually pretty disgusting. So when Rachel Maddow says, oh, an overt neo-Nazi rally, no. So this is kind of the pushback you have to give to people who are kind of in this mindset. Rachel Maddow is probably smarter than your average person who's watching Rachel Maddow. So you have to be ready to kind of give those examples to people. It's interesting. So listen to what she says here.
Woman in this incredibly definitively prove that Riley Williams is the woman in the video. That indeed, among the Capitol Hill rioters who have been charged thus far are explicit neo-Nazis, anti-Semites, and white supremacists. The way that they were able to do the legwork to figure out that that same person not only appeared in that video, but she had posted racist and anti-Semitic screeds to several different social media accounts.
Anti-Semitic screeds. That could literally just mean I don't want any more foreign wars. If I did a thread on Twitter and said, hey, I think that foreign intervention is wrong, and I don't think that $3.6 billion per year should be going to Israel, while we have people literally starving on the streets and we have an opioid pandemic and the middle class is shrinking and wages have not risen significantly since the 70s. And I think it's a waste of money to be spending money on Israel instead of not spending money on Israel, but spending money on wars that primarily benefit them instead of spending it at home on maybe a new infrastructure project when our roads literally look worse than third world countries. What I just said there could be considered an anti-Semitic screed to Rachel Maddow because she doesn't like my worldview. So when you think about it that way, anything you say will be considered basically an anti-Semitic screed or a racist screed. Oh, you have a problem with the black crime statistics? Sounds like a racist screed to me. Oh, you think that maybe we went a little too far in the way of third wave feminism? Sounds like a sexist screed to me. Time to ruin your life. That's what she's saying here. So don't give any credence to these ideas. It's very dishonest.
The key that sort of unlocked that was this photo.
God, she's annoying. She does that. Wait, hold on. I hate that cadence right there. Watch this. She does the fake hand gestures and the. Watch this.
Leads to several different social media accounts. The key that sort of unlocked that was this photo that she posted from one of those accounts. It's a photo of that same woman, Riley Williams, at a right-wing pro-Trump rally in D.C. in December. And in that photo, she's standing next to one of the speakers at that rally, who was apparently her hero, a man named Nick Fuentes. Bellingcat discovered in combing through Ms. Williams' social media history that of all the right-wing, white nationalist groups and personalities she followed, this Nick Fuentes guy was her clear favorite. Mr. Fuentes...
Yeah, but they would say that about Steven Crowder if she liked him and she did something else. So, well, it's ill-advised, she's not being optical online, but the thing that that someone like Rachel Maddow is not smart enough or is not tapped in enough to realize is that there's an entire online culture um, that is very irony laden. They don't understand that. They're not smart enough to understand that. So, I don't support any hand gestures that she's doing there. Okay, cool. She watched a Nick Fuentes video. If she had watched a Steven Crowder video, Rachel Maddow would be saying the same thing about Steven Crowder, and I'm sure she's said the same things about Ben Shapiro. The New York Times has written articles calling Ben Shapiro you know, um, a modern day neo-Nazi and all kinds of horrible things about even the most milquetoast conservatives. So, spare me the fake outrage calling Nick Fuentes some kind of, white supremacist adjacent person. I just don't see it. I was at the event. I watched John Miller speak. I watched Michelle Malkin speak, Steve King, all the rest, Paul Gosar, Nick, Vince. There was none of that there. Okay. Just because someone makes a shitty joke online, you're not going to get me to disavow people that are moving the country in the right direction. We'll get into what her problems are, what Rachel Maddow's problems are with Nick Fuentes' ideology, and not just Nick Fuentes, but people like Steve King, people like Paul Gosar, and yeah, what's your actual issue here, Rachel?
An advocate for a whites-only homeland, as in a country exclusively for white people. I'll give you one guess as to what country he thinks that should be.
So they use a Haaretz article, which is an Israeli-based outlet. So what it says, white nationalist Nick Fuentes' YouTube channel is banned for hate speech. Again, don't care. Hate speech, what does that mean? I could say that there's a difference between a man and a woman. There's a biological difference between a man and a woman. I could get banned for hate speech for that. So don't care. And then they use a quote here from Nick's speech, I believe, from AFPAC. It says the necessity for white people to have a homeland and for white people to have a country. If you're not being nuanced, then if you're not smart enough to understand that, then that quote won't make any sense. If you don't have the ability to analyze the world pre-1965, that quote will make no sense to you. So basically, before 1965, what is said in this quote was applicable to the United States. So before 1965, the country was 85% white, 10 to 15% black, with a small contingent of non-black or white immigrants, and that's how the country worked. Um, so if you want to have a conversation about diversity, that's fine. If you want to have a conversation about demographics, that's fine. But just using this out of context quote and just saying the necessity for white people as if that's like a home run gotcha, because you use the word white people and homeland in the same quote, yeah, you're not going to get me to disavow anyone for quoting that. So I need more, Rachel.
His charming resume includes denying that the Holocaust happened, claiming that things were better in America under Jim Crow laws. So he's pro-racial segregation, of course, the better to achieve ultimately a whites-only.
Hey singles, are you over 2020? Start fresh this new year with events and adventures.
Nation. He was at the white nationalist Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017. The better to achieve ultimately a whites-only nation. He was at claiming that things were better in America under Jim Crow laws. So
well, I mean, they're going to try to break down everything he's ever said. And this should be a testament to kind of what their plan is in the future as far as if you're a dissident, if you've said anything remotely controversial, this is what they're going to try to do to you. But I mean, if you really want to grapple with the the ideology behind what Nick is saying and what Gosar is saying. Um, where is he? I mean, I don't see where Nick is totally wrong here. It says Nick Fuentes, a provocateur who is engaged in Holocaust denialism. Well, they haven't given any proof that he's ever said anything along those lines. And if they had the proof, I'm sure they would have shown it already. So I don't care about this middle one. Enough with the Jim Crow stuff. Who cares? I largely agree. And actually, Rachel Maddow kind of touched on that. The black community was thriving in the 40s and 50s before the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Thomas Sowell has talked a lot about that. Now, does Nick say it in a way that's somewhat purposefully offensive and is irony laden and kind of not plays, but markets itself to a younger generation of people who maybe are not 60-year-old Wall Street Journal readers? Yeah, that's fine. But where is he wrong in saying the exact same thing that Thomas Sowell said in the 70s, saying that pre-integration, the black community was on a much better trajectory than it was after forced integration and forced busing happened? If you're going to call Nick Fuentes hateful for stating that, then you would have to state that Thomas Sowell is equally hateful.
Pro-racial segregation, of course, the better to achieve ultimately a whites-only nation. He was at the white nationalist Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville in 2017. He rallied pro-Trump rioters outside.
So again, you can kind of see what they're doing with the January 6th thing. Not that this is any big surprise, but they're trying to psyop January 6th into the new Charlottesville, the new 9/11. It's not true, and Nick was behind none of the violence. Again, it's one of those things where if they wanted to show that he was within the Capitol or said, "Hey guys, let's go storm the Capitol," if they had proof of that, they would be showing it. And there's none of that. He was outside. It's well known. He wasn't wearing the same clothes as other people that they were trying to say were him inside. He was outside giving a speech, just like Trump. Um, they really want to spin their wheels on this, and it's incredibly dishonest again.
On January 6th this year. And this weekend, while conservatives and elected Republicans were holding their annual Conservative Political Action Conference, CPAC, this year was all about how Donald Trump actually won the election and he's still secretly the actual president. Well, that was happening at CPAC. This guy, Nick Fuentes, hosted his own rival conference for Trump fans for whom CPAC wasn't enough, for Trump fans who needed something more radical.
So that's actually really important right there. I think that might be the crux of this video. So here's the thing. What they're going to do is, if there was no AFPAC, they would be calling CPAC the extremist conference. So look what Rachel Maddow did there. She said, while these right-wing extremists were at CPAC saying that Trump was still president, that wasn't enough for some of the conservatives. They had to go even further to the right and go to AFPAC. Even if there was no AFPAC, they would be calling CPAC what they're calling AFPAC now. They are never going to stop. And actually, Scott Greer had a really good point in his most recent podcast. A lot of conservatives, I don't know how many conservatives think this, but a few, and a lot of centrists think that, well, now that Trump's not in office, we're going back to normal. We're going to go back to centrism. We're going to go back to normal politics. No, the left is going to continue to put their boot on the throat of anyone to the right of Ben Shapiro, or even Ben Shapiro himself. And I don't even know if Ben realizes that. But in the same breath that Rachel Maddow called AFPAC an extremist convention, she would have been ready to do so in the same breath about CPAC if there was no AFPAC. Really think about it.
Conference for right-wingers who think that CPAC is just missing that explicit white nationalist Holocaust-denying flair.
Who has denied the Holocaust? Who did that? Who said that? No one said that. It is so, again, it's so dishonest. It's so incredibly dishonest. And it really edges on the line of libel at this point. That is disgusting.
Nick Fuentes took to the stage at this conference, this America First conference that he hosted. And from there, he railed against a, quote, new racial caste system in this country with whites at the bottom. He said America needs to protect its, quote, white demographic core. Really?
Well, I mean, Fuentes accused Black Lives Matter activists of wanting to create a new racial caste system in this country with whites at the bottom. Well, where is he wrong? Aren't whites already at the bottom? Doesn't affirmative action already basically solidify the idea that if an organization or any system has too many or has an overrepresentation of white people, then they need less white people in that system and they need to be replaced by either minorities or people of a different sexual identity? I mean, I don't understand what else affirmative action is then. White people are the only people where it's solidified into law that they can be discriminated against legally. So I, she uses these words, she uses these shocking clips and says it in such a tone where you're supposed to feel like that's outlandish or that's beyond the pale, but I don't understand where it is beyond the pale. Again, Nick says right here, I don't know if this was Nick or Stephen King or Gosar, but it says if America loses its white demographic core. Well, again, she's not even offering any context there. It's just a quote. It just says if America loses its demographic white core. Um, well, I mean, I think it was Sam Francis who asked this question. Can Western civilization be continued by non-Europeans? Can European civilization continue and thrive without having a European ethnic core, an ethnic demographic core? I don't think so. I don't think it can continue without largely white Europeans um, continuing that tradition. Without that, you don't have the Enlightenment. Not that I'm a fan of liberalism, but again, she's not interacting with the actual issues, and that's what's really frustrating. She's just putting up she's just putting up quotes that are supposed to evoke a reaction from you. So again, a lot of this stuff is not surprising to people who get this, but like, really think about this. She's putting up if America loses its white demographic core. Well, isn't that an issue that should be explored and kind of broken down a little bit? I wouldn't expect Africa to be Africa if it was run by Germans for 6 generations. It's common sense.
Nice folks, right? Guess who the keynote speaker was at that?
HR manager vibes. This is funny.
He said America needs to protect its, quote, white demographic core. Really nice folks, right?
Nice folks, right? Oh yeah, because that's the number one virtue. Be nice, Don't make anyone mad. Be nice folks, right? What does that even mean? Get to the core of the argument of what they are talking about in those two quotes. Nice folks, right? I really don't care if they're nice. I don't care if they're mean or short or tall or fat or skinny. What is the core of their argument? You're not getting there. You're an HR manager. You're a DMV worker. You're a dishonest liar. That's what you are. And look at that. I mean, look at the moral, the righteous indignation on the face. Really nice people, right? Yeah, I'm sure you're a very nice person, Rachel. Yeah.
Guess who the keynote speaker was at that conference this weekend? The keynote at the White Homeland Holocaust Denial Wasn't Jim Crow Great Guys White Nationalist Conference. The keynote speaker was a sitting congressman, a sitting 5-term Republican congressman. And by sitting, I mean, yes, he's still in Congress. Paul Gosar of Arizona. Not a single other sitting member of Congress would go near this white nationalist, white homeland conference.
So I talked with Paul Gosar for several minutes after AFPAC, and he is a brave man. He's a good guy. Takes a lot of bravery um, to associate with people that have been persona non grata, by the establishment. So I have nothing but respect for Paul Gosar. And the fact that people like Rachel Maddow don't like him tells me that I'm on the right side here.
Congressman Paul Gosar of Arizona, sure. And, don't just go. How about keynoting it? And yes, Paul Gosar is the kind of congressman who has said things like, the U.S. is already in a civil war, and, quote, we just haven't started shooting yet. He says stuff like this. He associates himself with causes like this. But
people like this, people like Rachel Maddow, that quote, what she just said there. Yeah, he says stuff like this. People like that, again, it's so dishonest because these are the people that advocate for violence in the streets when it benefits their ideology. So when it says we just haven't started shooting yet, if you replaced, Paul Gosar for leader of BLM says it's a civil war, we just haven't started shooting yet, she would say, well, yeah, a lot of black people do feel that way. And a lot of the disenfranchised minorities who have had their property and their wealth taken from them for generations upon generations do feel that way. And I can't necessarily fault them for wanting to perpetuate violence in the streets. They could say that, but when Paul Gosar says, hey, certain groups are starting to feel disenfranchised and you're not really advocate or you're not allowing me and my constituency to advocate in our best self-interests. She says, oh, well, he says those kind of crazy things. Yeah, well, where were you when BLM was burning down every major city for 3 months after the George Floyd riots? You were advocating for them, and you were telling people like us that we're crazy for having any problem with it.
But keynoting the
Fucking spare me.
white nationalist conference? The Conference for America being a whites-only country?
They never said that. Never said that America should be a white-only country. There is probably an argument to be had if you read Robert Putnam's book, Bowling Alone. There are very substantive arguments given against, or not given against diversity, but that lay out the idea that with increased diversity, civic engagement goes down steeply. We saw that in America after 1985. But she's not engaging with that. She's just putting on goofy face and she goes, diversity? Oh, obviously. This is not a serious person. Um, yeah, this is just not a serious person, and anyone who talks like this is not a serious person either. And you got to be ready to push back at the very core of the very foundation of their core beliefs. You just got to be ready to do it, because if not, you're going to get this look, and they're going to look at you and go, you don't think your neighborhood should just be 100% Guatemalan? Wacky. That's what they're going to do.
That is something that's supposed to be too crazy and offensive even for this Republican Party now, right? I mean, that's why they had to have their own separate conference aside from CPAC, right? Here's how Congressman Gosar's home state paper, the Arizona Republic, put it in a column today. Quote, where is the condemnation from Gosar's fellow party leaders? The ones who insist the lunatic fringe is not taking over the once grand old party. This is an easy call for a party that insists it's not the party of white supremacy.
Well, that's the problem. Is I'm glad that no Republicans are condemning Paul Gosar, because here's the thing. Anything that Republicans do or conservatives do that the left considers outside of the Overton window is going to be called white supremacy. So I just don't know why the right should play into the left's moral framework at all. Does the left ever have to apologize for any conferences they go to? Does AOC ever have to apologize for not condemning Antifa? Does Elizabeth Warren or even more centrist Democrats, Kamala Harris, Joe Biden, I've never once heard them have to condemn the violence done in their name by Antifa, ever. On the contrary, you have people on the right, and Carissa Avalone is a good example of this. Hunter Avalone's wife. Carissa Avalone went on Facebook and said that she listed a whole graphic about how the Capitol riots were totally beyond the pale, and it was disgusting, and it was like white supremacist violence, the whole nine. And she listed another column saying that the BLM riots are different than that, even though those were taking place in every major city and caused billions of more dollars in damage. She was actively defending the BLM riots days after the Capitol riots. They will never give up on anyone right wing who is heterodox, who goes against the grain. So why would Paul Gosar apologize? What? So Paul Gosar is going to go on MSNBC and say, "Hey, actually, that event I was at, that was crazy." Oh yeah, and then you guys will love him, and you guys won't. Yeah, okay. And then he's Ben Shapiro, and he's going to have a show on the Daily Wire. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure you guys will stop wanting him dead or something if he were to apologize. Doubt.
It ought to be an easy call, about to be an especially easy call, because Paul Gosar was joined at the White Nationalist Conference this weekend by Steve King. Remember who Steve King is? Former Republican congressman. He is a former Republican congressman because he was stripped of his committee assignments, shunned, and ultimately defeated in a Republican primary after he said one too many nice things about white supremacy, and that was seen as over the line for the Republican Party.
Again, so disgusting. What they do is they use their, they hold up their trophies. What they do is they say, well, he was stripped of all of his, I forgot, all of his appointments and all of his sittings within the party. Well, okay, Marjorie Taylor Greene is being stripped of all of her appointments within the Congress. Anyone who, again, like I said, anyone who advocates for anything outside of what they consider within the box of mainstream thought, they are ready to end your life. Not literally, I don't think so, maybe, but they are ready to end your career. They are ready to ruin your life, not end your life, ruin your life. They will come after your family, anything. So all that Rachel Maddow's little segment here is doing is making me appreciate the courage of people like Steve King and Paul Gosar even more. Um, and and I'm curious. It's interesting. There were, not to go full Democrats or the real racists, or like we're not racist, but there were a lot of minorities at AFPAC. So I'm curious how she squares that circle. Am I a black white supremacist? I don't know how that works. So Steve King gave a great speech. Paul Gosar gave a great speech. Um, yeah, they're very courageous guys. I mean, I don't know what she wants us to say here about him. What? Because he was stripped of some position in the Congress, I'm supposed to agree with her worldview that everything he's ever said is wrong? No. She hasn't told me anything that he said that I believe to be wrong.
Steve King is Exhibit A for the Republican Party's straightforward playbook about how to handle these things. He's a walking, talking Exhibit A, standing there at that same white national.
The funny thing is that you know people who talk like this too. Everyone knows like a shit lib in their life who talks like this, like with the facial expressions and goes, he's a walking talk, like very much a Sam Harris type. He is literally a walking, talking, endorsement of white nationalism and the division that's being sowed within our country after the rhetoric of Donald Trump. These people literally are disgusting. They are weak and cowardly, frankly, and that's about all I can say.
Republican Party's straightforward playbook about how to handle these things. He's a walking, talking Exhibit A, standing there at that same white nationalist conference right next to Congressman Gosar. How come they're not going to use that playbook against Gosar, the guy who's still currently in Congress?
She wants Gosar taken out of Congress so bad, but it's not going to happen because nothing he said was crazy, and it was actually a very good speech. And he's a brave guy, and you're not going to get him thrown out of Congress by your facial expressions.
Seriously, are you guys cool with this? TikTok, watch this space.
we are hoping to.
Oh man, disgusting. So here's what the last thing I wanted to show everyone was. But so here's kind of a page out of Rachel Maddow's playbook. What she did here, or not Rachel Maddow directly, but I guess this is a leftist site. It's called politics1.com. And it says, here is Congressman Paul Gosar, Republican from Arizona, and ex-Congressman Steve King, Republican from Iowa, proudly posing with white supremacist Holocaust denier and January 6th insurrectionist Nick Fuentes and his white supremacist AFPAC event yesterday. Okay, so at first, if you're a boomer and you don't know what else to look for, I guess you look at this and you go, oh, well, that's Nick Fuentes and he's beyond the pale and blah, blah, blah. And then you're supposed to say, well, that's Steve King. He's even more beyond the pale. And that's Gosar. He's a sitting member of Congress. So just like Rachel Maddow just said. But as John Miller pointed out very eloquently, and I don't think I have his tweet directly, but this is what I found. So this is true. So I tweeted before they cropped it, Miller Stream, and I'll show you who that is in a second, but he was one of the speakers at AFPAC along with Michelle Malkin. It says before they cropped it, Miller Stream was in this picture as he was one of the speakers at AFPAC. It's so disgustingly dishonest. Not surprising, but they will literally edit out a black guy so they can push the white nationalist stick. So here is the picture if they hadn't cropped it. So this is what was literally going on 3 or 5 feet over from how the media decided to crop it. You literally have Michelle Malkin, who spoke also at AFPAC, and John Miller, who also spoke at AFPAC. And this caption is accurate. It says, they cropped out these two because they want to call me a white supremacist. Michelle Malkin, Filipino. John Miller, black. You know, by Rachel Maddow's logic, I don't even know what she would say to John Miller or Michelle Malkin. She sure as hell won't have them on her show. She sure as hell won't give them the time of day to defend themselves. Apparently, she asked Nick if he would join her show tonight to defend himself, but it's a little bit too late. And frankly, Nick's audience is more loyal and bigger than her, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, they're willing to just edit these two out, John and Michelle, and the countless other minorities, the black people that were there or whatever. Not that you need that to have any sway. It doesn't matter. It could be 100% white, and their ideas should still be interacted with honestly. Rachel Maddow is not doing that. She is looking at someone she doesn't like and she's saying, well, because I don't like you, I can't even interact with it. This is just it's just bonus that there were minorities there. It's like, oh, that's pretty cool. That doesn't even have to be the case. Like I said, it could be 100% white and the event should not have to apologize for that. Who cares? Interact with the ideas. But Rachel Maddow's not capable of it. Her boomer audience and her millennial wine mom, cat mom audience is not capable of it. Um, so yeah, again, not really surprised. You know, that's kind of the sad part of these kind of videos, is I'm not really surprised by how Rachel Maddow is acting, but it's disgusting. It's disgustingly dishonest. I don't like it. They're smearing my friends, but we're gonna win. And AFPAC was awesome, and I will be doing a video tomorrow with a few of the attendees. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Again, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share. Go follow on Twitter, Jordan B Videos. And I will put the social media in the link below. All right, guys. I'll see you tomorrow.